What's going on, y'all? Episode 45 of the Rebelcast, and today we're chilling with FiguredBass. Definitely want you guys to get to know this person, this character, this phenom of the rebellion. I'm just kidding. She's awesome. She's fun to be around, and so we thought she'd be great for this as our guest for this episode. So. FiguredBass, how are you? How's your week been? What you been up to?
I'm doing great. I had my RCQ yesterday, which we'll talk about later. It was a lot of fun. And I'm so happy to have that you guys have me on here. I'm very excited and to talk about some amazing Magic the Gathering topics.
Hell yeah. Athena is here as well. Athena the Bun. Y'all know her well. What's going on with you this week in Magic?
Honestly, I've been playing a ton of Explorer ever since the American RCs happened and we saw like the new meta start to kind of form around it. Explorer has been a huge blast. Haven't had this much fun since pre-Amalia, to be honest.
I'm so
Awesome.
happy Selesnya Angels is back in Explorer. I've been playing that just nonstop. I got so tired of Amalia. That deck is so stressful.
Why do you say that? Why do you say stressful? I mean, I agree with you, but I
Well,
want to hear why you say it.
so like just in paper, try not to go to time, resolving
Yep.
your
Yep.
triggers correctly and just like hoping you pop off before they could do their thing. Because like that's that's kind of like the caveat of combo decks, especially creature combo decks. You just are praying your top decks are really good and you can get there fast enough before they blow you out of the water.
Yeah. Well, and we'll get a chance to touch on those topics in a bit here too. But yeah, happy to hear you talk about Explorer, especially Selesnya Angels, because that's my chosen deck there. And Darth Rictus makes fun of me for playing that deck. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. So I'm a little
It's great. It's so much fun.
I'm a little traumatized talking about that deck in front of him. But
at RC, like I think 24th place was Celestia Angels at the RC. Like it had a really good win rate. What was it? 56%, 57% win rate?
that is really good. That is really good to hear. That's awesome. So for you guys out there listening, whether you're on Spotify or on YouTube, I know some of our YouTube audience doesn't know that we're also on Spotify for your convenience, so you can check us out there as well. But our topics today, we're really just going to touch on a few things that, doesn't grind all our gears. Some of it grinds my gears, so you're going to hear me talk about something I talk about in the Discord all the time, but today on the Rebelcast. But we are going to talk about MTG Arena, what it's like to stream, because all of us have had experience with streaming Arena. And so we're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on competitive versus casual, sort of what is the distinction between the two, and what are our thoughts on the way things have been trending lately in those different areas of Magic. And then we'll touch on our favorite formats, because that's for us. We'd love to talk about, as you could tell from this intro, we'd love to talk about our favorite formats and basically why they are what they are. So let's just lay back, let's chill, and talk about some Magic. And we'll start with MTG Arena. This is, I don't want to say a sore subject. It's a subject that like I have a lot of thoughts, because I've been streaming Arena for 3 years. And I've gone through best of 1, best of 3, competitive versus just having explosive deck videos. I've tried different ways of formatting my deck videos, and a lot of it hasn't succeeded, but I'm back to trying to make content. So this is a topic that I definitely want to touch on. FiguredBass, you have a very special streaming style. I want you, for those who haven't seen FiguredBass's streams, are very entertaining. I want you to talk about sort of what's your philosophy of streaming? How do you like to stream? What about it do you enjoy doing?
Uh, really, it all kind of started with me wanting to document just how unlucky I get with playing Magic. That's kind of
fair.
how it started. So, my local team that I play test with all the time for the competitive season, they just are so dumbfounded by just how unlucky I am. Like, you should maybe start streaming and just, I think it'd be funny, just people watching you just be bad, right? Not being bad, but just like my luck being so bad. Like recently I was streaming like a modern league, or I was practicing modern with one of the rebellion members, and there's a deck in Modern called Ruby Storm, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you have to flip a coin. If it's heads, depending on you choose, if you lose the flip, you take a damage. And I lost 10 flips in a row.
Jesus.
And killed myself. So
Jesus.
just like documenting that process. And yeah, I take my streams just like really casually fun, like kind of like anybody can just say whatever they want. It's very comedic style of streaming, very like self-deprecating for sure. And I have a lot of fun channel redemptions that chat has a blast with, and I just gotta have fun and chill. And it's also like and it's also a really good resource, especially if you're like heavily into the competitive scene, because you can watch your plays and see like
Yep.
what you've done wrong, where you could have done. Like I watch all of my stream specs just so I can see like, okay, this line would have been better, this line would have been better.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's definitely something to what you just said about that. We touched on it. Mother of Halflings I was the other day in the Discord talking about recording her matches just so she could go back and like correct mistakes and whatnot. And I was just like, oh, Streamlabs or OBS is perfect for that. Just you don't have to stream, you can just hit the record button. And so yeah, it's definitely a resource for that. Athena, you may have something to say on that. What how do you use streaming? What's your philosophy behind streaming? And my extra question for you, because Darth touches on this sometimes with me, is does streaming affect how well you play? Like, does it distract you?
Where do I even begin? I mean, so I guess like philosophy of streaming and stuff, I kind of just like stream to have fun, right? I never really did it to like get viewers or anything. It was just like, hey, if I'm gonna be playing Magic during these times, I might as well stream it for people in the Rebellion to like come and watch, right? Um Admittedly, I haven't streamed in a good while. I haven't really set up a good schedule for it. I had the whole situation with like the natural disasters in Cleveland shutting off power for a week and ruining
Yeah.
my computer, and then losing my voice right after that. And
Oh my god.
I kind of just never got back into it after all that. I've been working 6
Understandable.
days. Yeah, I've been working 6 days a week at work at the moment, and I don't really have time for streaming like I want to. But in terms of like the other question you asked, which is does it affect your play? 100%.
Oh yeah,
I play so much worse
absolutely.
on stream. I
So
I
much
like, and
worse.
I even notice it when streaming on Discord, right? Where like I'll be in call with like some of the Rebellion members, and they'll just point something out to me like, "Oh, shouldn't you have done that?" And I'm just sitting there thinking like, "Yeah, why didn't I do that? I didn't even think about the play. I was just talking and playing
Yep.
cards, not even
Yeah,
thinking."
especially when you're like
So
having to
yeah.
interact with chat, keep it entertaining. You don't want any like silence in the stream.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. My so this happened to me. I want to touch on this. This happened to me Friday night. I was on a roll with Zur Domain and Standard, and I was about to hit Mythic, and then I got right up to Mythic, and I choked. The deck choked, and so I got back up there. I grinded back up there, and I was about to get in, and I ran into Azorius Artifacts. This deck, I hate this deck so much. Anyway, it's not like a consistent deck. It's not like a hugely competitive deck. It's not even on the in the meta, like in the tier list, but it has so many like artifacts from Ixalan that you're not paying attention to. Like they don't see that much play, so you're not used to interacting with those artifacts. So when you have like 8 artifacts out there, when your opponent does, and they all have these different passive abilities, the one that got me, I had Atrax out there, I had a full board state, I had flyers, I was about to win, and I should have Sunfalled, because the moment you cast a spell, you can't attack the opponent according to this one artifact. And I didn't have that in mind, so I cast my spell, and it wasn't Sunfall, it was something else to be more aggressive and increase the board state, and that was it. I wasn't able to attack. They got the turn, they did their thing, and they were able to hit me with like 30 trample damage, and it was really bad. And my chat was like, why didn't you Sunfall? And
And like, listen, sometimes, we're just dumb, okay?
Yeah.
We can't be pretty and smart.
Oh, jeez.
You flatter me by including me in that statement. I love that. Thank you. Oh, man. So, yeah, needless to say, I think streaming is kind of a tension point with what we're doing, trying to be competitive. But, I mean, we got to get the message out there somehow. And streaming is just one of those platforms that I like to use. Darth doesn't really stream anymore. It's no secret that he kind of stopped doing his streams and his YouTube channel. And he just, if he does any content, it's really just like legacy or vintage paper with his friends, and it's got to be something that he enjoys at the same time. And I get why, because as we've touched on, like, it can really fuck you up competitively, and
For sure.
I call it training with weights, because
Oh
you're
yeah,
like,
exactly.
right? I feel like
Yeah, no, I was literally just thinking that.
yes, once the weights come off and you're like sitting there
You're
in
in
the
it. And like
yeah,
you're focused. Like
yeah,
I've realized that at like all my RCQs because I'm streaming MTG challenges and leagues on MTGO, or if I'm climbing the
Mhm.
ladder on Arena, and having to talk with chat, interact more, like kind of explain like what I'm doing and like talking through the turns, exactly why I'm doing it. Like it is a really good way to get practice in because you're talking out loud.
yep.
Like explaining the deck that you're playing really helps you learn the deck better. And then whenever you're at
Mhm.
these competitive settings, you're not having to multitask as much. You're much more focused and you're like, oh, like I know exactly what I'm doing here. And you have a lot more confidence going into these tournaments.
There's a philosophy that you don't truly understand something until you can teach it to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Mm-hmm.
that really
Mm-hmm.
applies here with this, because I feel like if you
Absolutely.
can't actually explain to someone else while you're playing, like why you're doing the things you're doing, then you don't actually know what you're
Like,
doing.
You're just like kind
Yeah.
of going through the motions
Hmm.
otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally right. I that gets out of my mind sometimes. Like, I don't think about that sometimes when I'm down on myself for like making the bad play. But yeah, that's the silver lining to all of it, is that you're really teaching yourself to play as well. You're talking yourself
Mm-hmm.
through it. Okay, okay. That's something I hadn't really thought about.
And it really like helps with decision making when it comes to these competitive events because talking it out to someone else, it just like kind of clears up each line and each path to winning the game.
Hmm.
Fair, totally fair.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to really quickly, Figured Base, shout out to Figured Base. We'll have a link in the description to her Twitch, and y'all go check out her stream. Send her some
Yeah,
love.
have fun with me. Come play games with me. I love playing against my viewers because you guys play the craziest decks against me,
Some of the
especially in
best
Timeless.
arena streamers, the ones that are at the top of the viewer list are ones that challenge their viewership.
Hmm.
That's something that me and Darth did, or found out in our researching other streamers to join the rebellion in the beginning phases. People who did the best were the ones who challenged their viewers. People like to interact, I
Hmm.
think, is what it is. So
Yeah,
yeah,
Hmm.
when I'll let you shout yourself out now instead of at the end, because I think it's just much more relevant to what we're talking about. When do you stream?
sure.
What's your weekly schedule?
So I stream Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. CST on Twitch. You can find me at twitch.tv/figuredbase. And you can also find all of my socials. Instagram is figured_base, Twitter, figured_base. Lots of figured bass, which is a music theory term. It's not
Okay.
bass like the fish, it's bass like the instrument. But yeah, sometimes I'll stream on a Monday or like a weekend if I'm like feeling need extra play testing in. But for sure, concrete every Tuesdays and Thursdays. And also, I just got my new streaming laptop, so I will start consistently streaming Mondays and Fridays at my local
Ooh.
game store, and we'll be doing
Ooh.
Pauper, Modern, Standard, Pioneer, just kind of like what the current RCQ season format is, and I'll be streaming there. So that'll be fun, hopefully in the near future.
Okay, that's a good segue into our next topic. Let's talk about what competitive versus casual means to us. What's the distinction between those, and really, what are our philosophies and theories on why those lines are drawn the way they are? Um, I'll start just by talking. I'll get the old man rant out of the way, y'all, so y'all can actually entertain the audience.
Okay,
So
boomer.
I know, right? I was waiting for Athena to say
Oh,
it.
you beat me to it. Oh my goodness.
So this is kind of, I'm the one in the room who's always paying attention to this discourse and this dialogue, because unfortunately I'm addicted to Twitter. The rest of y'all, stay off Twitter if you can. It's horrible because some things will grab your attention for like hours at a time that shouldn't. Very distracting. But I'm limiting my time there. But one thing I've noticed in the discourse is, right, as a content creator, and I went to DreamHack, and I noticed this last year when MTG was at DreamHack Atlanta last year, that nobody came that was invited, that was an arena streamer or an MTG streamer, aside from like me and two other people that I knew, me and CFAV. And they invited a ton of these casual EDH format pod sort of YouTubers, because that's the meta right now. I have nothing against that particular, but that is the meta right now. That is what's out there in MTG content creation is, come check out me playing with these other personalities in a casual format for a couple hours. That's the thing. And I totally understand the appeal of that. It's been called in the past sort of like reality TV MTG. By some people. It's also been called sort of performative MTG in a way. Not by, that's something that some people use as a pejorative, but I think also on the other hand, I totally understand why it would be called that in a positive sense, because you're trying to interact with the audience and you're trying to give them something that they can analyze, check out for themselves. And so it's no secret that the flagship format has shifted in the past decade from standard to EDH. And that's just where we are. That's just the reality of things. So my bone to pick, and I'll keep this brief, is introducing brand new players to EDH first. So the issues that come up, not knowing 60 card etiquette. So just in real life paper Magic, having played Arena for years, coming back to paper, I ran into this, like knowing shuffling has changed. Apparently there's shuffling rules. Depends on your LGS, depends on your convention hall. But shuffling rules, some things that I used to do all the time in the early days are now considered cheating, which is essentially like sorting out by different piles and making your cards more random by like shuffling the lands in before you shuffle. And we've talked about that in the Discord. Some places are cool with it, some places are not. And then etiquette, just in terms of like letting your opponent shuffle. There's tons of little small rules involved in Magic. Anyway, learning those, I think 60 card is introducing people to 60 card is a good way to sort of bring them in on the etiquette, right? Kitchen table Magic has its own rules, and we tend to have our own like house rules sometimes. I know I do when I play with people. Like I give everybody a free first mulligan, just to keep it fun. You don't want to play 2 games in a row where it's like all lands or no lands at all. So free first mulligan whenever people play at my house. But that sort of casual atmosphere can really become stressful for people who are trying to start out playing competitive after playing EDH. And so that's why I'm always like, learn standard or draft first. I loved it when standard was the flagship format, primarily because you could, everybody sort of taught each other. There was much more of a cooperative atmosphere, and I think what's come to mind recently, and I don't want to put the blame on anyone specifically, but what's come to mind recently is this idea that you can't have fun and be like a competitive spike trying to win at the same time. And that the competitive spike sort of ruins it for everybody. The pub stomper or something like that. And I think I say this so often in the past, and I'll leave it here, but part of the Rebellion's philosophy, our core sort of thing that we're trying to do, is to not only make competitive fun, but provide information and teach sort of the fundamentals, the basics of how to deck build, how to look at a meta, a regional meta too, and be like, okay, this is the deck I need to play to really tackle it with the highest percentage win rate. How to make those sorts of decisions before you even get to the match. I think those fundamentals are lost when you teach EDH first. Yeah.
I'm really glad you brought this up, because I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
When I learned how to play Magic, I learned in 60 card format, right? Draft first, going to standard, starting in Gate Crash. That was like my first set.
Okay.
And commander players, and don't get me wrong, I love commanders. I have like 15 commander decks built. Like it's a fun game to play with your friends, to like just to play Magic, right? And socialize. It's like I see it like as a board game, but with like Magic involved, but it, casual commander players, you just start with commander. They don't understand the stack. They don't understand interaction. They don't understand that it's okay to want to win the game. It's not this whole like you're being targeted. Like that's my biggest pet peeve when it comes to commander is no interaction. You're not trying to win the game. You're just you're just playing cards to play cards, but like this is still a game where you want to win. And you shouldn't feel bad for knocking someone out or killing someone. You shouldn't feel bad for winning. And also, you shouldn't be salty if you lose. And I feel like a lot of commander pods at the moment are just they have that mindset that like we need to keep the game going as long as possible. Like, no, I don't want to be stuck here for 4 or 5 hours playing one game.
Yeah.
Like, somebody win, let's get to the next one, you know? And that's what like starting at 60 card, it just teaches much better habits when it comes to deck building and playing the game, teaching you how to win, how to interact, how to keep up cards. You know, like people get upset, you know, like, oh, well, that commander is busted. Run removal. It's not indestructible.
Yeah,
like run instant speed interaction, you know? And that's like one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to commander. Thankfully my commander friends that I play commander with, you know, we all also play 60 card, but it's so disheartening whenever I go into an LGS, and especially being a woman in Magic as well, in a male dominated space, and I go into a random
Yeah.
LGS, I'm like, oh, I brought my commander deck, I'm gonna play, and I'm playing like Shield of the Apocalypse that has like 20 to 25 different instances of removal and interaction. And I disagree with the whole power level scheme. I'm just like, you run interaction, you're good.
Uh,
And then I go and I get hated on because I'm running a deck that is easily dealt with. Children is not indestructible. Like
yeah.
I'll get off of my high horse and let Athena talk.
you really need to play a commander with Ward 3 if you want to win. Apparently that's unbeatable in commander, so I've heard.
Ban it.
No, honestly, as someone who has almost never played commander, I think I've played 2 commander decks my entire life. All my commander has been on Tabletop Simulator. Like, it's not a format I've ever really cared that much about. It's always funny to see commander discourse. But to
Mhm.
me, like, I don't know, like, I don't really think like you have to associate commander with or any format with casual or competitive. I think it's just like, to me, if you're playing casual, it means you're playing a deck that's not optimized. Like, that's all it means to
Yeah.
me. I don't kind of understand the whole like playing to not win sort of thing that comes from commander, again, because I haven't really played the format much. But to me, it's like when I first started, I learned from playing like 60 card, ignoring the format, like kindred decks, right? Like
Yeah.
blue pirates, green elves, red goblins, etc. That's how I learned the game. That's how my friends taught me on Tabletop Simulator. And then eventually, when I got super into the game and they weren't around all the time, I just went to Arena to play instead. And the Arena like flagship format is standard, right? So that's pretty much all I've ever played since is the Arena formats. Um, I think, yeah, I definitely think like learning with like 60 card like casual kindred decks is like the easiest way to learn this game. Like,
It is.
everything in your deck has the word like human in it, then you know what your deck is trying to do, right? You're trying to play humans to win the game. So I don't know. Actually, funny enough, I have a friend that recently asked me to teach him how to play Magic, and he comes from other card games. And I put together like a
Ooh.
basic mono black sacrifice deck, ignoring formats to give to him so that he can learn. And I just think that's like the best philosophy for learning is taking a bunch of cards that synergize with each other that don't have crazy ridiculous effects. And
Really quickly, I do want you to get to that. But I wanted to say that, yeah, we've been identifying casual with commander in the MTG discourse in general for some time now. And to be honest with you, there's casual that's not commander. And I think you talked about something that I learned early on in my MTG play with ICPJs, actually, is we played kindred decks. We built a bunch of them together. And like her Samurai's deck is the funnest thing to play for her. And so Samurais versus Slivers, we did that so many times, but it was a lot of fun, and that was sort of the best way to sort of extend the match. They're not optimized. You play more of the fun cards. And so I understand the drive to push Commander on both sides. Players love it because you only have to have one copy of a card. It's easier to build singleton in a lot of cases, and you can go after themes. And Wizards loves it because you can sell cards from the massive card pool that is all of Magic. So yeah,
Yeah. And
I'll let
have
you.
chase cards in
Oh,
Yeah.
standard
God,
sets.
yes. But
Better for
what about
commander.
competitive, Athena? What were you going to touch on, Athena, about competitive?
To me, competitive just means like trying to like playing decks that are like more optimized, right? So like like I said, I don't understand the whole playing not to win thing. I think no matter what, even if you're playing the suboptimal decks, right? Like if I go, if like for an example of a suboptimal deck, right? I'll go play like mono green Stompy in standard, right? That's like a pretty suboptimal deck. But when I'm playing it, I'm still trying to win the game. And with competitive, it's like I'm playing like Azorius Mentor or Domain or something in standard, or I'm playing like Azorius Humans or Blue White Control in Explorer. Decks that like are good and are like tuned to the meta and are actively like trying to have a game plan together that's coherent to what the card pool is.
I just want to point out you named 3 Azorius decks right there.
Yeah, whatever.
She likes to say she's not a control player, but
Right.
we all know.
I think she has she's definitely having an affair with control decks.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Jesus.
No,
Yeah,
I
Mentor,
love
the control
kindred
deck.
humans.
You're right. Humans and Mentor, the biggest control decks of their formats. You're right. My apologies. My apologies.
But what is let's talk about competitive. What is what is your favorite format, Athena? I think it's no secret what it is, but tell us why it is what it is.
So my favorite format's Pioneer. / Explorer, because Explorer is how I mostly play it. It wasn't the case during like the Amalia portion of Pioneer. Outside of the Amalia portion, Pioneer has always been my favorite since I've played it. I started it on Explorer and Arena. I started playing with like humans at first. Moved on to like a bunch of different decks over time, but like to me, like I really like the fact that it's a non-rotating format. And the fact that it's a non-rotating format means that you can actually like learn a single deck and become really, really good at a single deck. And it's like maybe that's something I miss from like playing League of Legends back in the day of like, you get to learn your one champion and you could be really, really good at it and know the ins and outs of it and how it interacts with like each matchup. And like that's how Pioneer kind of feels, right? Like you have people that are like, someone from the Discord, Splash for Fixing, has been on Angels since like for like 5 years or something like that. And like he's really good at knowing the ins and outs of like how Angels plays and like all the little tech cards you can put in, right? And it's really cool to have people like that and playing their decks, right? And it's just something that you can't really get from a rotating format like Modern or Standard. Yes, Modern's rotating. I don't care.
Yes, I have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, but like it's a lot easier, I think, also for new players. That's like my other thing is I think it's a lot easier to bring players into like formats that aren't rotating. The fact that Standard went to 3 years definitely helps the case for Standard for that. But I think letting someone just play one deck for years just to learn the format, learn the game, etc., is a really good way to get them to learn the game.
Okay, I think all those are really good reasons. I also love Pioneer and the fact that it's kind of like standard non-rotating because cards are from recent memory for me. And they're from sets that I actually bought cards in, which is, I'm only going to touch on why I don't like Modern in this sense. Cost of entry. I'm huge about accessibility. Coming from just like a minority background, coming up poor, it sucked being able to play Magic well, but losing because you couldn't get the rares you needed, and the guy next to you has everything because his parents just gave him $1,000. It was frustrating growing up doing that, and so anything that Magic can do to mitigate that cost of entry, Arena was huge for me in terms of accessibility, being able to play any deck I chose, just about. And keeping up with Arena cards is so much cheaper in my opinion than paper. And I'm rediscovering that now, opening boxes to get just the rares to build like 1 or 2 decks. And Modern makes that even harder. So
yeah,
that's my only bone to pick with Modern.
Spending $1,000 every set. No,
there's maybe like 2 decks in Modern that you can play that are viable, that are like sub $500. Ruby Storm is one of them. That one it cost me $150 to build that deck. Because it uses so many commons and uncommons. I think the big costs are the lands and Ral. The lands are, but with Modern Horizons 3, the lands are a lot more accessible, and then reprinting those lands, which is great. I love seeing a polluted delta at fucking $12, let me tell you.
Yeah. See, I've got like 4 Pioneer decks. I've got 5 standard decks that are all viable right now. And the only modern deck I could build is just from like old cards. It's not even a meta deck, it's slivers.
Listen,
Oh god.
you could always build Storm. And also Slivers, I think, got like top 8
It
in
did.
a modern challenge, which is like
It did.
sick to see.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting times.
So yeah, modern
Right.
is so it like yeah, we have like our energy jacks and the one rings, right? But you know, like we're seeing like the new abhorrent Oculus card that came in. Yeah, like we're seeing like standard cards making their way into modern, which is insane to me that standard cards
Yeah.
are being printed
Yeah.
at such a high power level that they are viable in modern decks.
And that
Which
feeds
is
into what I'm about to
yeah.
identify as my favorite format. But really quick, I have to say one phrase that's come up recently is that if you want to be a pro player, you got to put a ring on it because of the one ring and because of the cost of that freaking card.
Yeah. I'm hoping it gets banned in December.
Modern, I definitely feel you on the accessibility thing, because like
Mhm.
even if modern looked remotely fun to play, I'd probably never actually buy into it. It's just so much money.
Mhm.
Like the types
It
of
is.
decks I would want to play, right? First of all, like me joining modern now, it's like fuck, man. Well, my favorite deck was always like 4-color Omnath. What the hell am I doing building that deck now?
You're a
Right?
criminal for that being
Like,
your favorite deck, by the way.
I agree.
I'm
I
so
still play.
glad
Look,
Yorion is banned in modern.
like I
You
still
would play that
play.
deck.
I still play. Yeah, I would, because my timeless deck is like Yorion Beanstalk Elemental.
Of course it is. Of course.
Yeah.
Actual
But
criminal.
let's talk about standard really quick. You identified something that I am just so in love with about standard: the 3-year rotation and the redesign. The power level of cards, yes, people were talking about power creep in Magic. It is a real thing, but it's allowed standard cards to become viable in other formats, and that to me is healthy for Magic for a couple of reasons. One,
Yes.
accessibility.
Mhm.
Standard's just easier to get a hold of. And second, it introduces people who play Standard or Pioneer into those older formats, and it makes them more viable. So it's a good life cycle. I'm trying to get players to play all the formats. I think that's good for the health of the game. But Standard is my favorite format. I think it should be the flagship format again. My major reason, accessibility, right? The cards are accessible. It's easier to run Friday Night Magics off of Standard, if everybody's playing Standard, of course. Which has been sort of the issue lately, is trying to get people off of just Commander nights for Fridays. And I have something to report. My LGS, about a year ago, I was having trouble when they were trying to revitalize Standard, finding a place to play. The 2 LGSs in my area were all on Commander and Modern, and I couldn't find a way to talk the owners into doing anything else. The interest just wasn't there. But now they're doing Standard every Tuesday night, and they're really trying to see if it does become a viable format in my area, will it become like the Friday Night Magic format? Hopefully the Standard Spotlight series does something to jumpstart all that in my area, in the Atlanta area. But I'm hoping that this push for Standard will bring in more players, because I'm going to be quite honest with y'all, the EDH thing is not working. It's not. Like, it's working in terms of increasing their short-term revenue, but in terms of like long-term bringing in new players, people are getting dissuaded from playing because of, you know, they're even if your casual kitchen table doesn't care about bans or anything that like a committee does, it's still dissuading new players because they're coming in through the LGS, they're buying the cards there, they're hearing the news there, they're playing there, they're playing according to their rules. And so I don't know. I don't think it's bringing in new players. We'll have to see what the stats are. I'll probably pull it up on the screen in post right now. But Arena is seeing an increase in player base. And so that's really cool. Even before we have Pioneer fully, and that's another thing I complain about. We need Pioneer in Arena. We just I know you love Explorer, but we need full Pioneer in Arena.
I agree.
Yeah, the fact that they've gone back to boosting MTGO with its creator program, the fact that they continue to support it and make it the official kind of digital version of Magic, I mean, it's disheartening because I think Arena has taken many, like the dev team there has taken many steps in recent years to make it much more stable. It used to have bugs. Athena can tell you, it used to have some crazy bugs. And it still kind of does, but at least they've gotten it to a point where it's stable. So, go ahead.
I really love where Standard is going as a format. Like I'm all for the power creep, because I think it's gonna make more people who are just like, oh, I'm only modern or only play pioneer, because
Yeah.
standard is just not fun to play. It's not optimized. One of my friends, Eliza, who top aided at this RCQ, she ran a lot of standard cards. She ran this Gruul Prowess deck with Slick Shock Show Off, Storm
Ooh.
Chaser's Talent.
Yep.
And she top aided with no Modern Horizons 3 cards. There was like 16 standard cards in that deck. I'll post a
Okay.
list. I
You'll
think,
have
Athena,
to.
you're gonna really like this list.
Okay.
And I was just, even the judge at the tournament was so impressed. I was like, good job on like winning this like top aiding with mainly standard cards.
That's
It was
awesome.
still an
Mhm.
optimized good deck,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah,
I just
that was
love to see where standard is going.
that was one thing with like Slick Shots printing, right? Which I think is like one of the cards that like really started this trend. The
Mhm.
cards you see
Mhm.
like across all three of the big 60 card formats, right? Like when Slick Shot first got printed, we saw Gruul Prowess in standard, pioneer, and modern be top decks for a good while.
Yeah.
And I think that stuff's kind of cool, you know. I
Yeah.
definitely am like worried whenever there's a card that's like so good for modern and not for reasons of other modern cards that it
Mhm.
might be too good for standard, right? Like Oculus, I'm not as worried about, right? Because
Yeah.
Oculus is like, oh, it's so good in modern because you just have fetch lands and better cantrips
Yeah.
to dump your old
Mhm.
graveyard, right? But like in
Mhm.
standard, it doesn't seem like super broken, right? And it's not even played
Right.
in
Mhm.
Pioneer because you're not going to replace Treasure Cruise in the decks that want
For
it.
sure.
Yeah.
So like I'm always a big fan of cards like that have like power that scales through the formats.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Totally agreed. And before we talk about FiguredBass's favorite format, because I want to ask you about that, I want to ask each of you, what do you think about the red ley line? Ban or no ban?
Ah.
In
Ban and
standard.
best of one. Ban and best of one. Keep
Yeah.
in best
Yeah.
of three.
Agreed.
I think
Agreed.
for a long time I think we should have had different bans for best of one and best of three, just from how stuff dominates best of one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If it weren't for like I can't imagine that Team or Analyst wasn't anywhere near a balanced deck in best of one, unless the best deck otherwise was mono red, right? Because like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
whole thing on that in best of three was it had like a 70-something% win rate in game one, and then you beat it games 2 and 3. So yeah, I can imagine that or like Greasefang in best of one Explorer, right?
Oh
Was
my
like
God.
absolutely tearing stuff up because no one had any grave hate in their main board.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Absolutely.
think there should be different bans for best of one and best of three. I don't think Leyline is that
Mhm.
bad for best of three. I think
I
it
don't think
makes
so
your
either.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it makes your mulligans a lot more interesting. I think there's a lot of hands where you have to like mulligan away the red ley line in order to get a playable hand. So yeah, I'm not as big of a like fan of it in best of one though, because I've seen what it does to best of one, and it reminds me of Tybalt's Trickery, and they banned it
Yeah.
because it was
Yeah.
like broken in like
Mhm.
best of one, right? So it didn't even have a good win rate. It was like 30% win rate, but it just made it an awful play
Mhm.
experience. So that's
Oh,
like
for
another
sure.
argument against it.
Yeah,
You
because
know,
like turn 2 wins and standard is kind of crazy.
Yeah, but in best of three, you can like sideboard against
Yeah.
it, right? Like
Oh, for sure.
every color has a way to deal with it turn
Mhm.
one outside of green. But like, who plays green?
Ouch.
People don't play mono green. Let me rephrase that, right? Like you
Mhm.
play green with other colors, and those other colors cover the fact that green doesn't have any way to deal with red ley line, right?
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
if I'm
Essentially.
playing brutes, I'll just play cut downs, right? Or I'll play disfigures, or I'll play like
For sure.
even some other like 1 mana removal thing to kill it. I mean, even
Mhm.
honestly, even pick your poison does
Yeah.
technically answer it in green.
It
So,
does.
but you're not main decking pick your poison. So yeah.
No, it for sure should stay in best of 3. I think it's a good tech. I
Mhm.
kind of wish the other ley lines were better.
Why they
Same.
make
Really,
so many of them so
the
terrible? Like,
I know. It's like only the red one is
yeah,
playable. All the other,
the-
like, what deck is gonna play the green one?
yeah.
I
The green one
Ugh.
makes me mad. No, the green one actively makes me mad because it's a
Mhm.
ley line that does nothing until turn 4 or
Sure.
5.
Yep. Yep.
So that one makes me mad. The blue
I'm like,
one is
why?
at least like interesting because you can go like you can like leyline blue naming Otter, and suddenly your Valley Floodcaller becomes Jeskai Ascendancy with Mana
Yeah.
Dorks, right? Like you can
Mhm.
do like
Fair.
dumb stuff
Yeah,
like
you can do
that.
fun, janky stuff with it.
Yeah, you know. But like the green one is like, why? Why does this exist? Who does this exist for?
I know. I kind of wish the white one, the ley line, was it ley line of protection, the old one,
Oh, the old one, Leyline of Sanctity.
Sanctity. I kind of wish that they kept ley line of the void in for black. I was like, I feel like ley
Mhm.
line of sanctity would have been a viable standard card. I feel like
Yeah, I
this,
agree.
especially definitely would have fit in standard perfectly with our current meta.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be broken either.
Hmm.
With like the pick your poison and no, settle the wreckage isn't is it standard viable.
They're talking about that should be in Foundations. A lot of people are saying that. I'm
I
one
do.
of them.
I'm so excited for Foundations.
I
I
am
I
too.
want Hedron or Ruin Crab to be printed so I can make Milled standard
Oh
viable.
god. They might,
Demir,
they
bring
probably
back
might do
Demir
it.
Rogues. Demir Rogues was a huge standard deck when I started playing Arena.
Yeah,
That
I
deck,
wouldn't mind
it was like
Rogues.
tier 1.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you know you can play it in Explorer, right? It's pretty good deck in
Yeah.
Explorer.
You can. I hated it. I hated that deck so much.
I'll
Oh,
always be an Angel's Truther. Like I will try to play Selesnya anywhere I can.
Same. I love that deck. I really do. That and
Which is funny.
Is it
'Cause I'm
Phoenix is kind of
funny.
my second favorite. But tell us about your favorite format. We haven't really talked about this one yet. And I really like your choice, by the way. Go ahead.
So my favorite format is Pauper. I really think they need to add Pauper into the competitive RCQ format
Read.
rotation. Like it fixes so many problems about Magic right now. One, it makes a viable, affordable way to play competitively and get to the Pro Tour. Because Pauper decks are like what, $50?
$100 at
Maybe?
most. Yeah.
$100 at most. And it lets a lot of more people get into 60 card constructed, and the format is so healthy, especially once they banned all that glitters. The format is very healthy right now. There's a deck for everybody, and it's so much fun to play, and it's really easy to learn as well. I always try to get
Mhm.
Commander players started on Pauper first, and I think if they just added Pauper into the competitive RCQ cycle, it would solve a lot of problems. But Wizards likes Hasbro likes making money,
Yeah.
and I don't think
Yeah.
that would ever happen. But if we're talking
Mhm.
about competitive, I would definitely say Pioneer is my favorite competitive format when it comes
Mhm.
to like the RCQ season, because
Mm.
the exact same thing that Athena's talking about. It's not as explosive and unfun and feels bad to play as modern. But it's also faster, a lot more interaction, a lot more fun
Mhm.
things to do. And you have more powerful cards than standard. And it's also non-rotating for the most part. And that's why I like
Mhm.
Pioneer when it comes to competitive. But Pauper, Hasbro, hear me out. Listen,
Yeah, I think
Please.
bring it
I
in.
I think one thing with Pauper being so cheap is because it's not a competitive format. I have a
Yeah.
feeling if you put Pauper into the RC cycle, the decks will jump up in price a good bit.
Yeah, but like they all have to be common when they go.
Sure, but like I mean, we've seen Pauper cards go crazy before. What was the black removal spell? Snuff Out
Snuff out, snuff
until
out.
it got reprinted in Doctor
Printed.
Who. It was like $40.
Yeah, and in the Baldur's Gate D&D release.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay.
And now it's like $5, I think. But
Yeah.
also like all that dust or
All is dust.
all is dust. That's also like I think it's like an $8-10 card. I don't think it's on the reserve list, but it's old. It's an old
Yeah.
card. They would definitely have to like reprint a lot of these common Pauper staples for sure to
Hmm.
make it viable and
Yeah.
affordable.
Hmm.
Okay. Great choice, I think, especially because you touched on it. You try to get EDH players to play Pauper first. And I think that's a testament to the thing we were talking about earlier too, with the Kindred decks being the thing that we started out on. If you introduce something easier to understand, and this is why I love Foundations, y'all go check out the article. I'm going to leave a link in the description, but they got somebody who had previously been a Pokemon and some other TCG, Hearthstone, I think, player,
Mhm.
to try Magic the Gathering for the first time at the Wizards headquarters with the Foundation starter decks where it's scripted, like the playlines are
Mhm.
scripted. And that's also how I have taught other people in the past, because I think back in like 2010 or 2009 when they released Planeswalkers, they kind of did the same thing with some starter decks. And I love the idea of that. I love the concept of that. So Foundations, we're gonna have an influx of people to standard. That's interesting.
Hmm.
That's gonna make me nostalgic for like Mirrodin when I started playing Magic, when we had standard and extended block, and I started with standard, and then after like the next theme set came out, it was like, well, what do I do with all these cards? They were like, oh, just play them in extended. And so there was a format for that. And if we can keep standard and pioneer going, pioneer is going to be kind of like extended. It's going to be the format for that. So I'm excited for the future of Magic. How long is Foundation's going to be standard legal? Do you know?
5 years. So
5 years?
until the end of 2029.
Okay.
They said.
We're getting Land of War Elves. Maybe Bottom Grade will be viable on standard with Land of War Elves.
That's my hope. That's my dearest hope. I cling to that hope every
we
day.
Get Fiora printed in standard.
We're getting cat cards.
Yes.
We always get good white mid-rangey cards in cats.
Yeah, white weenies. Other than white humans needs to be a thing again. I used to play that in Pioneer or Explorer rather. I used to play.
You play it in Pauper.
Oh, Charmed Prince would be a great print.
Yes.
Oh, Charming Prince. Oh, please give me Charming Prince. Yeah,
Charming
Standard. I
Prince
love that card.
Yeah,
I used to play that with my Yorion deck. Yeah, I love Yorion.
See, I'm not the only criminal here.
I've
Am I
committed
the
some
only
crimes.
Fair Magic player? I guess not. I play Storm.
Weren't you just talking about Storm?
I was gonna say.
And Amalia?
Yeah. I play all the combo decks.
I
play Domain right now, so I'm that villain. I don't know.
I mean, I'm playing Boros Enchantments in Standard right now. That's fair.
At least Omnath is like a fair deck still. Like you're still doing things with your mana.
Yeah, not just like Storm Count 20.
Yeah.
Land Storm Count 0 pass.
Wow. All right. So thanks everybody for checking us out. Be sure to go check us out on Spotify and follow us there as well. Even if you subscribe on YouTube, we're coming up pretty strong in the last couple of episodes. Rebelcast is starting to get some views. So thank you all for supporting us. That's pretty much all the time we have for today.
This episode of the Rebelcast is sponsor free. So if you'd like to contribute to what we do and make sure we stay in the game as long as possible, consider making a purchase in our merch store or joining the Rebellion.
All right, and go check out FiguredBass. Links in the description to her Twitch streams. Athena and mine as well, because, you never know when Athena will pop back up again.
Yeah, and we all stream together sometimes.
We do. Hey, that was fun. We got to do that again.
We got to do that again.
We do.
Definitely. And we got to play again and play test and do that and talk shit. I love it. It was fun.
Mockingbird for the win.
Oh my God.
Love Mockingbird.
Until next time, y'all. Untap, upkeep, resist.